Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for not joining the horde streaming out at the end of the last session before the long break. So I really appreciate you coming here. This is a great crowd for a last session on the last day. So greatly appreciated. And there is a reward for those who stick to the end. There is a, I would say, substantial reward awaiting all of you. So I say no more about that at the moment. So your loyalty, your intelligent decision about which session to come to, all of that is being rewarded. So welcome and thank you. We're focusing on learning culture, but if you can see the title, it's not here's a theory, here's a model, here's an idea. This is embedding. This is about what places really do, what workplaces decide to do in order to create, embed, develop that learning culture. And we've got two organizations. They both begin with D. They both take stuff with a bit of science and magic, put it in bottles, and then persuade you to buy it. That is where the similarity ends. So they are both companies that sell stuff globally. One of them, Deciem, is a small boutique, can we call it beauty company? Is that fair? Is that the sector? Beauty company, which is growing like wildfire from its start in Toronto, Canada. The other has a long and illustrious history going back into the 19th century. Diageo is one of the largest drinks companies in the world. Yeah, it's in the top 2 or 3 of drinks companies in the world with a multitude of brands. And most of the people who buy their product and drink their product don't even know that it comes from somewhere or a company called Diageo. But they're both passionate about their people. They both do really interesting things in very different ways. So the way we're going to structure this is that these are case studies. So it would be nice to say, well, let's just talk amongst ourselves. But I think you're going to get more out of it if you have something to chew on. So we'll give you some stuff to chew on. 2 case studies, starting with Deciem and then Diageo, and then we'll have a chance to talk about what they're doing, what we can learn from it, and any questions or queries about the process, the methodology, and what they think they've achieved in doing that. And we've got 2 global heads who are taking us through. Kristina Tsiriotakis. Kristina has a middle name, Aphrodite. So that's a beautiful name. Kristina Aphrodite Tsiriotakis. I wish I had a middle name like that, but I'm not telling you what mine is. She's Global Director of Learning and Development at Deciem, and she came into a tabula rasa. There was nothing there, because it's a small company growing. So she's building from the ground upwards. Craige Heaney is the Global Learning and Capability Director at Diageo. And Craige, there is an illustrious history. There have been many before Craige. But he's put a unique Heaney spin on the way that Diageo approach capability development and learning. And they're both very, very interesting case studies. And I commend you and your good sense in coming here this afternoon. So let's start. I'll invite Kristina to the stage, and I'll be keeping a track on anything. If anyone's got anything worried or they can't hear or anything, I will be watching you, and I'll be watching Kristina as well. So Kristina, you're very welcome, and let's hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. I might need a little technology assistance. Thank you. Wonderful. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. As Nigel mentioned, I'm from Deciem, the abnormal beauty company. So everything that we do is a little bit different, and that's really embedded into our customer experience, the way that we innovate, and the way that we approach our learning culture as well. Just for a little bit of background, I spent 10 years at a different beauty brand where we had a very defined learning culture. The company was almost 45 years old, and we really had everything quite buttoned up around learning. And back in February, I got the call to join Deciem and to build something completely from the ground up. So it was really a once-in-a-career opportunity to actually stop and think, what do I believe in? Why am I in this work? And what do I want to give people to have a really meaningful learning experience? You can see our motto, I'm still learning, that Michelangelo said at 87 years old. That sits on my desk, and I remind myself of that every day because we are experimenting, and I think it's a message we try to send to the entire community at Deciem, that everything is about trying and being agile and actively experimenting and seeing what works and seeing what connects. So every day that we try something different, if it fits or if it doesn't fit, we remind ourselves we're in a safe space to just keep learning and keep trying and keep having that growth mindset. So who is Deciem? We are a humble and happy umbrella of beauty brands. We were founded in 2013 with a truly anti-corporate model. So the whole idea around Deciem was we were going to bring in really excited, passionate, creative people, most of whom had no background in the skincare or beauty industry, and allow them a creative space to try something different. We launched 10 brands at once, which was quite innovative, and we really challenged the beauty industry around how we speak to products. We've created a huge amount of education for customers around products, and we don't sell. If you come into one of our shops, we actually never sell you anything. What we've done is we've offered the customer access to information and gotten our customers really excited about taking charge of their own education when it comes to skincare. We've actually created a wave of what they call skintellectuals now, and there are communities all over the world that are really obsessed with figuring out the science behind skincare. Even the way that we speak to ingredients with The Ordinary, we were told these products are never going to sell. No one speaks this language. People aren't educated on skincare. And our founder said, well, we're going to change the game, and we're actually going to give the education to the customer and let them direct their own experience through choice. So this approach really informed and inspired how I wanted to democratize learning, because what we've really done is democratize skincare and access to education through skincare and inspire choice and bring people to us. So it's really been a pull strategy, not a push. And I wanted to really create that in the learning space as well. We love doing everything that others don't do. We have a real rebellious sense. And anything corporate doesn't fly. Our boardroom is spelled B-O-R-E-D. We end our emails saying emails are boring. So there's really a fun sense of rebellion and freedom. But in 2016, when The Ordinary blew up, we went from 50 employees to 650 in a year and a half. We became a $300 million business. And when I joined in April, we went from 650 very quickly to 1,000. So imagine a space now with a ton of employees, new roles, the company's growing like wildfire, and there's no L&D. There's no learning culture. And we have to create something now to inspire these team members and to really upskill them. So a huge challenge to build this from the ground up, terrifying, equally exciting, and a great opportunity to create choice. So I really had to think about, how do I balance guidance and self-direction? How do I balance mirroring culture and guiding culture? How do I balance the individual with the collective? So there were all of these things that I wanted to bring in, and how do we balance structure and freedom, which is essential to the brand? I found my answer in music and lyrics. This is actually a quote from Jeff Buckley that I've turned to many times in my life when I haven't been sure about how to sort of push through something. And he says, life is not like earth that you move through with a tractor. It's more like earth that you learn about and plant seeds in. It's something that you have to have a relationship with in order to experience. You can't mold it. You can't control it. So I thought to myself, I can't bulldoze. There has to be interplay, and everything we do has to be about creating a relationship and interplay between learning and the learner so that we can create something that's truly co-constructed. And ultimately, that's what I believe in when it comes to the learning space, is a co-creation and shared environment. Deciem's built on the concept of being a family and creating a human world of beauty. So coming back to this sense of, how do we build community globally and really bridge gaps around the world and feel like we're part of one shared communal experience? Because if we all meaningfully contribute to it, then we're going to have that sense of belonging and that sense of actualization. And how do we co-direct it? And for me, I kept reading self-directed, and you're always reading the latest LinkedIn article, and I thought, I can't pay attention to the buzzwords and what's happening in the industry. I have to make choices that are relevant to the culture and the needs of my organization and create my own terms and my own rules and not be afraid, even if that's not the trendy sounding thing. And in a culture where there was no learning culture, I couldn't just say, well, people are going to be self-directed, because that wasn't going to work for us. We had to do something new. So, if you can't find the term you're looking for, make it up. That was my approach to it. So I was quite blessed to happen upon Thrive, and really quite scared because I'd worked with a traditional LMS and a traditional social enterprise platform, and here's this amazing team and also a newer company really trying to push the boundaries of a learning platform and create a learning experience platform that could act as an LMS, act as a social platform, be extremely user-driven, offer personalization, and create something holistic, which is really what we wanted. And what I didn't want was people looking here and there and everywhere on all of these different platforms, because I'd had that in the past and I saw how it impacted the employee experience. They didn't know where to learn. There were too many choices, and so they would just say, forget about it. It's just too convoluted and too complicated. Thrive's got sort of two key areas that were really appealing. This is sort of your homepage where we could run really easy campaigns and bring the user into those campaigns and have user-generated content with those campaigns. And then this is the highlights banner over here where we could highlight any content from any employee globally that we wanted to bring in that element of comms culture. And then based on your interests and your auto-curation and personalization, you'd see the newest content. You might see what appeals to you as well. And this all lives on the homepage. Really dynamic, really fast-moving. But then we also have our Discover area, which functions as almost our intranet or our hub for the learning that we're trying to artifact and capture that we want to make sure that everybody can access. Whether it's things that typically get lost in a Dropbox or links that people can't find to some of our partners, whether it's e-learning or other content that we've brought in that's been curated, I wanted it all to live in one space, and I wanted to make sure that we could have partners who could also drive this. So it wasn't just L&D piloting it, that it was also other team members championing it and creating whatever they wanted to put under the brand channel or the retail channel, for example. We soft launched in May because we needed to really understand what some of the limitations were in the organization. Everything's done in-house at Deciem, so we have almost 400 employees in our warehouse with little access to technology and really no time for learning. And also retail employees in super busy stores that also had no time for learning and no idea what learning at work even was. So we needed to get an understanding of what's going to hold us back. I think one of the smartest things we did was bring in a head of learning change who could literally be dedicated to navigating that and to partnering with all of the different functions, whether it was, HR and data that wasn't so sexy, whether it was, working with IT to make sure that we had everything right from a technology perspective, to really make sure that we launched strong. We launched in September globally. I didn't want to launch just to retail or just to corporate because it's not an inclusive experience if we're not including the people who make our products. And we were able to achieve 95% activation, which was pretty extraordinary considering this is all opt-in. Nothing about our culture is compliant. So do you want to choose to come and be part of this experience? We've maintained usage every day that everybody's going on the platform daily. And something I think I'm most proud of is we worked with Thrive to create a bespoke leadership series featuring our CEO. This is 8 weeks of learning content, 10 minutes a day, with shared questions around leadership. And we said, learning is between you and you, which was taken from beauty is between you and you, which you might have seen in our stores. We said, the choice is yours. If you want to come on this journey and learn about leadership, you come to us. And 20% of our population committed to this. People that had never learned, committing to 10 minutes a day of learning over 8 weeks, and we've been able to sustain that throughout the leadership series. So those are some things that we've been quite proud of. And 3 of the ways that we've managed to achieve that are through really trying to reimagine content, campaigns, and how we build community. So those are the ideas that I really want to leave you with today. The first thing I'll say is, when I got to Deciem, I did a typical roadmap for content. I mapped out my learning pillars. What do I need as job aids? What do I need as e-learning? All the typical stuff. But I realized that I myself was struggling to figure out what it really meant to be in this culture. I was going through culture shock because I'd been somewhere else for 10 years. And all of that stuff wasn't actually teaching me what it meant to be part of this organization. And I was feeling disconnected, and I was feeling really lonely myself. And I started to see things like I would see our design team, design's a core value at Deciem. I would see this team have these incredible brainstorms together and collaborate in this beautiful way. And I'd think like, this is what this place is about. This is the magic here. And how can I translate that and spread that across the globe? Because I want someone in Australia to see that, because that's the DNA, that's the fabric of this organization. And I realized that I was in a position where I could completely redefine what a learning moment was. And it didn't just have to be courses and face-to-face things. We had a platform where we could, through user-generated content and through initiatives, invite everybody to be part of these micro moments of learning by asking really thoughtful questions and giving people really easy challenges and getting them excited. And I also started to realize that as much as I was there to create a learning culture, I was there to teach people what the culture was. So my job was really to help people learn culture. Inspiration comes in many different places, and literally every day there was like another learning moment that I wanted to capture. I wanted people to be able to see inside the lab and see how we touch and play with products, or I wanted somebody in Toronto to see how we welcome a customer in a London store. And so I had this idea to create a video challenge and to invite all teams to creatively share what they contribute to the organization, what the team does, and how they drive Deciem forward, because I knew that when you share what you contribute, you have that sense of ownership and belonging. Everyone pushed back and told me, people are not gonna dig this. This is so cheesy. No one's gonna do it. Nobody has time for this. My team is too busy. And this caught on like wildfire. Like just the simplest idea of inviting people to be part of content and to create content and showcase themselves became a really big thing. It was like the thing everybody talked about at the water cooler. Now, I will say I am a little bit psychic in life, and I do think maybe that we were psychic about the South Korean win at the Oscars, because we created an Oscar that said eternal bragging rights for the most creative video, and our South Korean team won. So there you go. And I wanted to play this video for you. I wanted to play it for you because a lot of people had never met this team. We really had no idea if these team members were even showing up in South Korea. It was so far away. And then this video came through, and this ended up being the winning video.
Hi, I'm Vaishnava. You can call me Naya in this video. Let me show you the adventures of Naya. Are you ready? Yes, I'm ready. Okay, here we go.
I warned you.
In the beginning, there was an order from Korea.
Obviously, South Korea. She just ordered me. She places all orders for Korea. The click is like a magic spell bringing me out from the genius lab.
Hannah, I just made a requisition.
She knows everything. She's the alpha and the omega. If you have any question, she's there to help. Okay. Now I'm on my way. She's my favorite. She prepares me for Korean customers by putting Korean labels on my bag and making sure I'm shipped to the right address.
Take care, bye!
He's like personal inspector to me. I've been nervous during the long flight. I had air sickness, so he's going to check if everything is okay with me.
현아, it's great.
Okay. Oh yes, I'm good to go. He's the number guy. I don't really understand what he does, but math?
Wow!
Or math?
Wow, look at this! Wow! 현아, we got the money.
Okay.
Hannah, another requisition
See?
is created.
I'm so popular.
We could buy more jelly.
And so my adventure continues. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, so is it like the weirdest thing we ever saw? Did we think maybe we had dropped some acid, perhaps? But this is actually the culture out there. And on top of learning about that and those people, what we really learned about was, all of the things that the products go through out there. People in Toronto could now see the whole journey and how the team members in South Korea meaningfully contribute. So for me, this was a huge win. And this is just one example of so many videos that people got so excited to create to educate one another on some of the nitty-gritty of the organization. We have so many examples of ways that you can make learners teachers, but that's really the approach that we've taken. We've created so many challenges. One we did recently is called Deciem Moments, where we've invited different members of the organization to share moments from the founding years. We want to be able to artifact that story and that history and really get people involved in talking about the shared culture. We just did a great initiative with our customer happiness team where they could actually teach how you create a really great experience with a customer who calls in. Why should L&D be the one telling people? Why shouldn't we leverage the person who's actually living this day to day and utilize our platform and get everybody involved? And when you do that, not only are they the teacher, but that opens up how they feel about learning because they're sharing this aspect of the culture. The last thing I'll say for this is we've really brought comms into the learning space, and having one platform that's both your comms platform, your social platform, and your LMS has been great for that. And we've created a really nice framework with our partners. We've met with each function. We've said, what can you meaningfully contribute to the organization? We don't approach it with hierarchy, but whether it's our CEO speaking to the values of the organization personally and informally, or whether it's a team member, we have a really nice comms strategy to keep people informed. And when we surveyed our team members, 50% of them felt that they didn't know what was happening in the organization, and they wanted to learn about the strategy, the direction the company was going, and the milestones. These are learning moments just as much as your compliance training. They wanted to feel a part of something bigger, and unless we started having those conversations daily, they weren't going to be able to achieve that. The next thing I want to talk about is how we've tried to reimagine the learning campaign. The first aspect was really campaigning for Thrive. Thrive's an amazing and easy platform to campaign for because everything rhymes with it, such as live. So when Thrive went live, we teased this for many days. We did a really fun Take 5 for Thrive gift card where you could go out and literally download the platform, have a coffee, get online. We did a really great Thrive mystery challenge where every day, well, not every day actually, every so often we'd release a clue on the platform, which was a word scramble. Now, our products are named things like superoxide dismutase, so you're never going to figure that out unless you go onto our product knowledge section to unscramble these words. And all of those clues then led to the ultimate word scramble, and if you unscrambled that, you want to trip around the world. So this was another thing, like people that I'd never spoken to were emailing us, trying to figure out what the answer to this challenge was, but over the few weeks that we staggered this challenge out, we were getting people onto the learning section of the platform, pulling them in, not saying, hey, go and look at our job aids on The Ordinary, but doing something really fun and just trying to reimagine challenge. We've also campaigned for learning really well, at least I think so. I'm quite proud of it. Learning is Cool is a little initiative that we're running. Our first campaign was how to hack your learning, and we invited our learners to teach each other, like, how do you learn in your boring time? What apps do you use? Do you learn during a manicure? And we said our top learner in this 3-week time will win a prize. In that 3-week span, we had 800 completed courses in professional development and 1,500 hours of learning. And right now, we're in our Learn for a Cause initiative. This is another 3-week learning initiative, and every course completed is a tree planted, and we're up to 500 trees as of today. So really trying to change how we educate people on learning and how we speak to the ownership around it. Connecting through meaningful interplay. So in my previous life, we never brought in campaigns that had to do with anything going on outside of the organization. And it didn't make any sense to me. Mental health is very important to Deciem, and it was World Mental Health Day, and I thought, how can we not speak to this on the platform? So we dedicated a campaign to this, a takeover around mental wellness, and invited people to show solidarity, to share resources. And we had over 2,000 engagements in one day, which means everybody went back on the platform because they had more to say and they wanted to show more love and spread more messages. We also connected this to our employee wellness program called Hugs, which was being rolled out. And we said, how can we support this and how can we create positive behaviors and teach people how to change behaviors and not just teach them about compliance things and, upskilling. And so we did a 7-week challenge around wellness initiatives. And we actually took these from the Happiness Advantage. So week 1 was all about acts of kindness. We had, share something that's meaningful to you, meditation, and week over week we invited people to spread this on the platform to teach one another how they were achieving mindfulness. And if you completed all 7 challenges, you won a mystery prize, which was a day of wellness at the spa. So trying to look for fun and meaningful things. And then what we're doing right now is we've actually invited the learner to drive Thrive. So we've launched an area where you can submit a campaign idea and come and drive this platform with us. Why should we decide? In L&D, we're a bridge, but we shouldn't be the ones dictating. Everyone should feel like they're driving this platform forward. The last thoughts I want to leave you with are the ability to reimagine community through your learning platform and through your learning culture. My ultimate question is always, why would someone choose to learn here? They can go on YouTube. They can go on the internet. It's not just because you have a management course. It's something else that they're looking for. They're looking for a holistic, human, and meaningful connection in this space. And so it has to be more spiritual than simply upskilling. And so what I want you to think about is how you can be that bridge. And looking at a video like our South Korean video, it might seem really silly, but the impact, the way that our employees got so engaged because they could share and learn, but also have a spotlight on them, really changed the energy. It exposed the beautiful things going on in the organization, and it gave people that motivation and that happiness. So, we're constantly in a feedback loop, and when we see things like Thrive makes us feel more like a family, it brings everyone together. I love that I can connect with people from across the globe, and I realize that we're able to realize our vision of being a family by leveraging this platform and being really thoughtful about the way that we're using it to create meaningful connection. So it's a really rewarding feeling. So these are 3 of the things I wanted you to think about. Throw away what you might have done in the past around content, around campaigning, and around the scope of community that you can build. There are roadblocks, and I'd love to talk about those in the question portion. We had some challenges when it came to our pilot, and everybody has different ones. But I do want to say that if you choose to live out of your imagination and not your history, anything is possible. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and we've ended with a Deciem smiley face. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristina. Thank you very, very much. It's like the twin poles of my life. On the one hand, there's mastic must and hydration vaccine. On the other side, there's Talisker whiskey. And I live in between those two. So let's hear the other side of my life. So Diageo, Craig, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nigel. I too am a fan of Talisker. So for those of you who don't know, Diageo is one of the world's leading alcohol beverage companies. We have brands that go back hundreds of years, not just to the 19th century. So whether that's our whiskey distilleries up in Scotland, or some of our newer brands like Guinness or Tanqueray or Seville, we have quite a portfolio of products. And the reason why I mention our heritage is for one reason alone, which is what we have learned is that people have learned how to do their jobs for hundreds of years, whether we existed or not. And so often when folk talk to me about a culture of learning, I get frustrated because there's an assumption that either you have it or you don't. It's a lie. Like, if you didn't exist, people would continue to learn in their roles, irrespective. That might be provoking. It was a realization for me to know that if I didn't exist, people would carry on. But it's the reality. And so therefore, the way we look at learning at Diageo is slightly different. We see our roles as guardians of enabling and empowering people to take responsibility for learning the skills they need to do and perform in their role. And there is an and develop the skills that individuals would like for their aspirations in the future, whether that's roles in Diageo or outside of Diageo. And so what that definition of learning is in Diageo addresses what we describe as a polarity. As an organization, how do you balance what the organization needs individuals to do within their roles with what individuals would like to learn so that they feel fulfilled? They feel like they are living their purpose. And so we take that challenge very seriously. And so if there are 3 things that you take away from my presentation, the first thing I'd say to you is that first and foremost, understand your business. Think about what your business is trying to achieve, what their priorities are now and in the future, and as a result of that, think about what are the capabilities that are going to enable the business to deliver against that. The second thing I'd say is employee experience is key. If you are not investing time, energy, and effort in making it effortless for people to get access to learning, whether that's formal or informal, it will undermine your ability for your employees to learn. And the third thing, when you look, a lot of the research, most L&D functions don't invest in their own skill set. And we rely a lot on theory or processes, or we rely a lot on vendors to come in and solve problems for us within the organization. What I'd say to you is, what we have learned is, if we don't invest in ourselves, we become irrelevant. And so what I'm going to take you through is, what's the journey we've been on as an L&D function to effectively enable the business and enable our employees. And so what I'm about to share with you is what I would define as being our roadmap for how we can enable individuals, teams, leaders within Diageo to effectively learn the skills that are required for them to perform within their role. So number one, at the core of everything we do is essentially be clear around your business strategy. What are effectively the priorities that you're trying to drive? How does that influence your people strategy? And then fundamentally, what does that mean for your capability requirements? Now, I think that's ubiquitous in terms of, we'd all agree with that. But I need to take that one step further. If it's not written in your business strategy, a requirement for people to learn, and therefore there is an expectation for employees to learn, you're not connected, in my view. And if in your HR strategy, it's not clear that there is an expectation that part of that function in HR is to enable people to continuously learn, it undermines your ability to design, deliver, deploy learning that is relevant. Diageo is an organization that has over 30,000 employees that are permanently employed, but we have over 50,000 indirect employees that we have to train in over 120 different countries on 180 different brands. The complexity of ensuring that when we are designing, developing learning with all of those nuances, cultural differences, needs to be anchored against what we're trying to achieve as a business. Based upon your business strategy, you build out what your learning strategy is. And so that moves us to our employee experience. And so whilst Diageo has a long legacy as a business, actually, I'd say over the last 3 years, we've been on a significant transformation with our learning. We had multiple LMSs. We often refer to our LMS as the dump. It's not appropriate, but effectively it's where we would dump all our content. People couldn't find it. It was difficult to access stuff that was relevant for you. So we've been on a journey of transformation. And the employee experience is a really important one, which is if you cannot articulate what employees in different environments are able to access learning that's relevant to them and the role that they do, they're not going to consume it. And so I'll give you an example. In Diageo, we do everything from producing, bottling, distributing, supplying, selling, marketing. That's a very diverse approach in terms of the types of skills that we're trying to drive. If I try to deliver learning or enable learning in an office the same way I did in a bottling plant, it doesn't work. And therefore, you have to map out how will people engage and consume learning, what's the role that their manager plays, what's the role that they play, and map that out in detail from how you attract, onboard, develop within role, enable succession, and you need to know what that experience is. Because if you don't, what you're driving is a lack of consumption and utilization, in our view. Then what we did is we moved to our infrastructure. And so if you think about who our consumer is from a learning perspective, it's our employees. And so now that we understood who our employees were, where they were based, how they consume learning, we then transformed our function. Our L&D operating model, how we operated with suppliers, and everything was anchored around how do we give the best possible experience to our employees. And it's through that infrastructure that we effectively went after what our technology strategy was. And so we had spoken to many LMS firms, and what we had realized is many of them haven't invested in the employee experience. And so there's a new category that's been created called your LXP, your Learning Experience Platform. And so what we decided is we wanted to create the best possible experience. So we partnered with Edcast. And effectively, I'm not here selling Edcast, but what I am saying is what they enabled us to do is reach a broad audience, whether it's mobile, whether it's by laptop, whether it's by video, so that people can consume learning in the way that they want at a point in time that's relevant to them, that's relevant to what their role is or their personal aspirations are. But it also meant that we needed to invest in our function. So in my function today, I have a data scientist. And what that data scientist looks at is how do we take all of the consumption of all of our learning to understand who's consuming what learning and what drives that learning? And how do we start pivoting from what is formalized learning to experiential learning? And what I mean by that is how do managers create experiences for people to learn on the job rather than people relying on us giving them a formalized solution? In addition to that, we have marketeers. They work with us in my team to understand how do we market these products and how do we effectively get it to our consumer. In addition to that, we also have people who specialize in internal comms, and so we can build campaigns. All of this is done because the age where you design and develop learning, and then what you do is you lob it over the fence and hope people consume it, and then it sits in your LMS. From our perspective, it's over. What we are specialists now in is how do we curate learning and how do we enable people to get access to it effortlessly. We're not even trying to delight people. We just want them to get access to it within 2 or 3 clicks. That's it. Which leads over to learner ownership. And so our view is very similar to what Kristina has articulated is, I want our employees to own their learning. And that what we do is we're just enablers. So how do we take content that they generate? How do we share it? And so one of the campaigns we have is we have a recognized learning influencer program where folk who have a passion for learning and a community of learners, we recognize them. We hold them up. We set up their own channel. They almost become bloggers. How cool is that? We have bloggers who blog about learning that they are consuming and share that across the various functions within Diageo. The other element of this is data and analytics, truly understanding just the mine of data that comes back around what's being consumed, who engages with our learning on a monthly basis. And so our measure, I could do a whole speech on evaluation, we won't go there, but our measure of success is people coming back and people sharing and people liking. We even analyze the comments that people leave on the different types of learning that they consume. And then we start working out what those comments are telling us. That then goes back into our design process to ensure that we're continuously learning around what's working. And then finally, and we're not here yet, but this is on our roadmap, is what we have learned is, has anyone ever seen that film by Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams? Great film. But in that film, he has a premise of, if you build it, they will come. I won't go into the story. What I've learned in learning is, if you build it, they do not come. It's a lie. They do not come. They will only come if there's a reason, if there is a rationale. And if you want to get into the psychology of it, effectively people are driven by reward or fear of consequence. And so if there's something in it for them, they will come. And so our view is, how do we hook learning into the flow of the work that individuals do? So if you're about to do a presentation or you're trying to sell a case study, or if you're trying to negotiate with someone, how could we get learning to you a week before that's about to happen so that you can consume something that's relevant? In addition to that, what are the big transformational programs that are going on across the business that we can hook the learning into? Because wherever there is change, there is a need to learn. And so how can we then effectively give people the opportunity to learn when there's a reason for them to do it? So effectively, this is our roadmap. And what I'd say is, even though we're an established organization, we're on this journey on a daily basis in terms of continually assessing what our employees need, what they want, what the business needs, and that's a dynamic tension, is what we would say. What I've got up here for you is a watered-down version of our learning strategy, but I'm not going to go through this in detail, but what I am going to talk to you about is it's very clear to everyone in my function and the broader HR function that what we're trying to do is to create a continuous learning culture, because if you think about the shelf life of skills, it's shortening. It is alarming the rate at which roles are changing. And so our view is continuous learning is important, but fundamentally what we're in the business of is improving capability. Improving skills, knowledge, and experiences that enhances what you do within your role. And then in terms of how we go about doing it, it needs to be sustainable, it needs to be on the job, and we need to be able to demonstrate that we're actually improving our employees' capability. I'll move on to this next slide, which just talks about the employee experience. And I hear a lot of people talk about why employee experience is important. We've anchored this in the core values of what we do as a function. And what we mean by that is we are crystal clear around the types of experiences folk have when they're onboarded into our organization. It's not good enough, it's something we're working on. But because we know what that experience is and we know what the pain points are, we can target very specifically what are the areas that we're going to prioritize. And I can tell you now, onboarding is one, early career development and getting access to learning. People management is a focus for us. And then obviously leadership. And you can see that there's a full spectrum where we can articulate how do people engage with learning, what their pain points, but also what are their pleasure points and how do we know? So that what we can do is we can target learning. In addition to that, and you can almost hear in my language, is that the role of learning or HR is evolving at such a rapid pace, but we're almost moving into the space of marketing. You need to know who your customers are. You need to be able to segment them. You need to be able to think about learning as a product and how you get that product to that customer so that that customer keeps coming back. And that's why segmentation for us is important. But everything that we're doing now is basically building the infrastructure that then starts allowing our communities to take ownership of their own learning. And so that's the next iteration of our journey, is how do we hook this learning experience into change that happens in our business? And then the second is, how do we start driving social learning and collaboration and retention of that knowledge? What I'm going to share with you here, sorry, there's a lot of information in these slides, but hopefully it's useful, is that in order to drive the infrastructure I've spoken about, you have to have a single point of access. And so when we talk about how we effectively build our learning ecosystem or our architecture, we have one single access point where all employees go to access that content. And so we use our LXP learning experience platform to effectively enable people to get curated content. So the moment they go there, they get to select what are the skills you'd like to learn? How would you like to learn it? What's the amount of time you have? So those responses tailor very specifically what gets sent to them in a daily or a weekly feed, depending on what they've selected. So even though we have a learning experience platform, what's important is that it's tailored towards the individual as opposed to us as an organization. And it's through that learning experience platform that what we have is influencer programs, which we'll have dedicated channels. So I'll give you an example. Sil Saller, who's our Chief Marketing Officer, brilliant lady, is an industry leader in the way that she thinks about marketing. She has her own channel that gets circulated across the organization that talks about coaching or leadership, not necessarily just about marketing, and people consume that. But let me flip that. We also have some brilliant commercial people who have their own channels, who are on the front line negotiating or working with retailers across the world. I'll give you an example. Our Australian commercial director started up a podcast. It blew up. He then put it through the influencer channel, and commercial folk in South America were listening to the tips around what he did to prepare, what he would do in terms of engaging with customers. And so to see that community enabling each other and driving a different modality around how they would consume learning was brilliant. We could not have predicted it. We could not have predicted that a podcast would have that high level of consumption. And so that's why what we're trying to do is pivot our role from designing, developing, and pushing learning to enabling the wealth of knowledge and experience in our business. So that becomes the driver, and that becomes what gets pushed to folks as opposed to what we do as an organization. And therefore, it's very clear to us, our role is just a guardian of this infrastructure that just enables people to get access to experiences, whether it's informal or formal. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to round this off by just saying one of the things that we've become incredibly clear to us is the quality with which you build your learning. It has to be premium. And you want to know why? Crazy. This is my hypothesis. Is that when you think about what people consume in their daily lives, in the apps in which they consume it, whether that's Facebook, whether that's Instagram or Twitter, that's what you're competing with. That's exactly what you're competing with, YouTube. And so what we invest in is thinking about what's the look, the feel, the experience. And so what I have for you is just a bit of an example around our career development hub, so you can see the way in which we try to curate this. And so what you're looking at is, it's actually hot off the press. It's what we're calling our career development hub. And effectively what it is, it's enabling people to craft their career. And the word craft hooks into what we do as a business. We craft ingredients to get to an outcome that's fulfilling, great experiences. And so this is something that we've been doing in terms of crafting your career. And you can see the way we've constructed it is that we have a brand, but in terms of the structure, you can see what we've tried to do is simplify. So wherever you are in your career, whether you're unsure but you'd like to do something different, we've curated content that will help you discover that. If you're clear around the different types of skills you have and the different types of roles you'd like to explore, we've curated content and videos and podcasts that helps you access those opportunities. Whether you're preparing to access a role, the interviews, how you present yourself, build a brand. Career Maximizer is essentially when you step into a role, how do you make the most of that? And then finally, if you're a line manager, how do you enable these conversations? And so you could see it's not just a learning experience platform, but it's effectively tools like this that make it simple for people to get to the content as quickly as possible. And so I'll finish up there, and I'll go back to saying, fundamentally, what we have learned in our journey that we're still fairly young on, employee experience is critical. If you don't make it effortless, people don't come back. We've learned that. And finally is, if you as a learning professional are not thinking about how you use data, how you think about consumption, how you market your products, how you get it to your consumers, you run the biggest risk of all of becoming irrelevant, is my provocation. I'll hand back to Nigel.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you very much. Thank you. The way we're going to play this now is, can you all stand up? Can you all stand up? It's the end of a long day after a second long day in a row. Go find someone that you've not spoken to at this conference. This is your last chance. Find someone, share what you're learning and what you're still curious about. Just take a minute. And while you're doing that, I'm going to get Craig and Kristina to come up here. Okay.
When you took with your presentation, I'm like, it really doesn't matter about the
Hello.
organization. We're all facing a similar problem here.
Hi. You can stay stood up if you want to, if it's more comfortable, or you can sit back down. But I hope that you've discovered that there are a hell of a lot more interesting people in the room than you ever dreamt. And there are a lot more besides. Okay, you're going to sit down. If some of you formulated your discussion into questions, there's plenty of time to ask those. I will go around the room with the microphone, so I'm not expecting anyone to have to run around after me. But one question I want to ask to get us going, and I'm asking a related but different question. I'll start with you, Craige. You had in the middle of your first screen, business strategy. So I'm going to ask you, how do you create some of the fun and joy and play that it was embedded into everything Kristina was saying in the company? Then I'm going to ask Kristina, so how do you make sure you're actually on track and delivering business strategy in your organization? So I'm flipping what you did. So Craige, first of all, fun, enjoyment, engagement.
I wouldn't say that business strategy isn't fun. It's not a fun word.
No, but how do you get fun out of business strategy then? How do you turn business strategy into fun? How do you create enjoyment and engagement? And it isn't just kind of boring, and, oh God, I've got to do it because Craige tells me I have.
So it is a really good question, and I think it's so I'm blessed, truly blessed, working in an organization with a CEO like Ivan. When Ivan talks about the business strategy, he talks about it in a way that matters to customers and gets our employees excited. But what's brilliant is that he will talk about My Learning Hub, and he'll say, "This is what I'm going to go and learn." I've carved out half an hour. We did a data protection piece of work, and we anchored it against superheroes. I don't know if you all have designed and developed data protection learning, but it ain't the most exciting stuff in the world, and often you get anchored in by subject matter experts trying to push their agenda rather than consume. And so he openly said, "Do you know what? I beat Data Doom." And I was excited. Go and check out the new data protection. And suddenly we had an influx of people completing it. So I'd say how you get the fun is telling compelling stories around what your strategy is, but how does it connect to the customer, and what's your role in making sure that our customers are excited about our products. And the learning, the way in which you create it, the way in which you build it, to Kristina's point, can be fun and playful, but still achieve the same outcome.
Yes, yes. Kristina, how do you know you're meeting the business strategy? How do you know you're driving what the CEO and the rest of the company want you to drive?
Is this one on? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's on.
Well, a few things in terms of where we're at with strategy, and that's that's sort of a term that's a little bit funny at Deciem, but we definitely have had a lot of formalized conversations around our people strategy. We've done all of the classic needs assessments around what people need to learn. We've actually involved our learners in the onboarding process to help reimagine what this onboarding experience should look like. We still pay attention to all of the metrics around development. Even embedded in the onboarding experience, actually, we've created a space for meaningful conversations and planning time for your learning and having discussions, guided conversations around what you need to learn to achieve success in your role. The difference is we're creating a space where we're asking people and getting them to talk with us about what they need so they feel that they're selecting it, not that it's being pushed out to them. In terms of what you mentioned around how great an LXP is for helping you know where to look and that curation process, it makes it really easy to know where to look when you need that management development, when you need that development around values or anything in the organization. We just want to make sure that people are involved in the choice around what they need to develop. And because most people know what they need in terms of learning and growing, they're just not necessarily being asked to opt into it. So we just want to have conversation around it so people can choose. And frankly, for us, if you feel that you want to learn about project management or you want to learn about the values of the organization, both are equally meaningful for different reasons. We just want you to learn. That's really our approach to it.
Good, okay.
Thank you, because I think it goes behind this. And I have to say, first of all, Kristina, I really don't, the thing I strongly felt was envy of having the opportunity to build a learning and development. I wish I could dismantle everything I have and start from zero. But the question is, for such a young organization and relatively small from what I'm hearing at the moment, what really drives the need of having an L&D function? And what was your remit at the very beginning?
Okay, so what drives the L&D, the need for an L&D function? And I'll flip that and I'll ask Craig. So why do you want to change what was working previously? Why did you rebuild your learning and development function? So start with Kristina and then Craig. So related questions again. Why did you do it?
I mean, Deciem went from 13 employees in 2013 to 60 in 2015 to 200 to 600 to 1,000. So when you're growing that quickly, when the need for product, the demand, the business is moving forward so quickly, it's not to say that we didn't need it. We just didn't have it, and people were coping. They weren't necessarily learning, and they were doing the best that they could, but they wanted it. They very much wanted a space to learn and to thrive and to be developed. They just didn't necessarily have the time for it because the organization was moving so quickly, or know how to incorporate it, or know what they needed. They just knew they needed something. So whether it's every human being needs to learn. So I think whether your organization is 50 or 500,000, you need that function. And we call it L&D. Is it learning in people? I mean, every organization is about the people and creating a meaningful space where people can learn, feel that they're contributing to something special, that they feel inspired, and that they're being developed and that they're invested in. So I don't think it matters what size your organization is. I don't think it matters what you call it. We just want people to grow and to feel connected.
It's a great question. Why invest the time, energy, and effort in transforming the way that we have is because we were irrelevant. And our employees told us. They told us, we can't find learning that's relevant to the job we do. We can't access information about our brands in a way that we can consume it and use it at that point of need. And so, because of that, if we hadn't have transformed, we would have been irrelevant. And so we decided, and Diageo has a fundamental belief and has invested significant amount of money in the past, that actually if we're going to do it again, let's do it properly. Let's think about the employee experience and how we build this around them as opposed to our needs in HR. And it's really funny because Kristina and I are sat here with a new organization versus an established one, but we're facing exactly the same challenges. Irrespective of our size, it's got to be relevant.
Hi guys. First of all, thank you both for some wonderful insights. My question is in relation to that learner experience and how you both addressed an issue you both touched on in relation to reaching those people who don't use a device or a computer in their workday, whether it's the people on the shop floor in Deciem or the people in the bottling plant that you referred to in Diageo, Craig. How do you tailor the learning experience for those people?
Great question. So, do you want to take that first, Craig, and then Kristina?
Sure, it's a challenge. I would say one of the biggest inhibitors to learning is time. And we're asking our people to do more with less time. And so the way we've dealt with that as a particular challenge with regimented roles where people have to be manning the supply line is we choose to give them time for them to come off and get access to technology or...
Via what device? By their phone? Or
mobile, laptop or desktop. But here's the other thing is because we all have an inherent belief that digital is replacing skill-based or instructor-based learning. I have a fundamental belief that's not true. The difference is you target skill-based learning, where someone has a requirement to practice, rehearse, and apply a skill. You put them in an environment that allows them to do that. You don't give them a digital solution because it doesn't work. And so it's a balance between the two. And in supply plants, when we do health and safety, we don't get them to do digital learning. We either give them virtual reality or we get them in that scenario to experience it. And so we think about that with a great deal. But I think it's a brilliant question because that is one of the biggest battles we have is time.
And you make the space. Fundamentally, you're saying we take it on the chin.
We take the investment on the chin, absolutely.
Kristina, what about all the people in your stores? How many stores have you got?
We've got about 30. So our business is a little different. We've got more partners than retail stores, but we have a lot of employees in our production space with not a lot of access to technology and certainly not a lot of time. So one of the things that we've done is create learning rooms and spaces, but the rooms aren't going to bring themselves to life. So we've literally had to go to these environments and campaign for learning there, as you said about marketing. Grab people, whether we bring cupcakes and have a face-to-face human conversation so that we can teach them about the space, teach them about consuming micro content. Everything on our platform is like Lincoln Locks. It's micro that can go to macro. So if you only have 15 minutes for a learning break, you can consume something. Even our off-the-shelf content with Thrive, it's like 10 minutes or less. It's really fun. So not everything has to be this big, drawn-out learning moment. We also believe in face-to-face for a meaningful human experience, but we'll film that, micro it down, and put it back on the platform. So if you didn't get that face-to-face experience and you want to go back on the platform and enjoy it that way, you can. The same approach with retail, iPads for all of the stores, and we've actually had meetings with the managers there. We've sent our team out across the world to teach them how to schedule those learning breaks and how to do it and why to do it, and how to explain it to the employee. I think when we launched Thrive, we had about 30 different educational sessions around how you could use the platform in your workday and answered any questions around that. So we could teach people that you can hack your learning. It doesn't have to be this big thing.
What were your failures? You talked really well, how you've done it, how you've changed, what you did, really inspiring stuff, but I always like to find out what went wrong, what didn't go so well. I mean, you said you started in April, and in May you were rolling out Thrive, wow.
Yes.
And Craig, I mean, I've gone through a similar process, going through and setting up a whole new system for an established company, so what were your biggest learnings?
So how did you, what went wrong and what did you learn?
How long do you have?
Not that long.
I'll keep it succinct. What the work I'm doing at Diageo is based on 10 years worth of learning. What I have learned is there is an inherent suspicion around technology and how it gets used. And then what happens is you sell the benefits of it, and people then believe that technology is the solution and it's the panacea and it's going to solve all your problems. And then you try and educate people. It's not. It's an enabler. What matters is the conversation a line manager has with an individual. What matters is the individual in terms of taking responsibility. So our biggest lessons, I would say, is finding the right strategic partner. God, that is painful. And that's not a slight to any vendors. But finding the right strategic partner that understands your business, understands your drive is critical. We had some missteps in that space. The second thing is, actually what I showed you is the latter version. We actually started with business strategy, then infrastructure, then employee experience. And you look at it now and you're like, you're an idiot. Why would you do that? Why would you set up an operating model without knowing the experience you're trying to drive? But through that learning, it changed fundamentally how we put our employees at the heart of everything that we did. And then there's this third piece. I've had to change my perception around what talent I need in a learning and a capability function. I, for a long time, would hire L&D folk, then I moved to a combination of business folk and L&D folk. Now, I look for brilliant people who have a generic set of skills, whether that's in data, whether that's in marketing, but fundamentally people who can communicate with the business in a simple language. And so that's been, as all of us will know, a testing process, I would say.
Fantastic, thank you. Kristina.
It can be the simplest thing, like what you choose to name your channel that you think is so obvious for somebody to, they're going to find all this amazing content here, and you realize it's actually not intuitive to people at all. These little things that really affect how people engage, that are roadblocks, because if you don't get that continuous feedback and make sure people understand how to navigate the platform, you've got this amazing thing there, but it's not coming to life. So communicating and educating people, I think even more in the beginning, we sort of didn't want to be too pushy. We wanted to see what happened. But then we realized that we really needed to educate people on how to use this. I didn't want to be a burden to all of these other busy directors. I was new in the company, and it wasn't that I was trying to be the silver bullet, but I thought they're busy and this is my duty, and I didn't bring them in enough. I should have brought them in more and helped them know how to spread the message within their teams and understand that ripple effect. And I realized that after the fact, even something like at Deciem, design is a core value. And we had this amazing design team. Now, Thrive's a sexy platform, but then we also had partners that could bring even more of our fun feeling into it. But I thought, they're busy. I don't want to bother them. Instead of trying to make it every director and every executive leader's piece in the beginning. And I learned that pretty quickly, but if I could do it again, I think I would have brought them in even more in the beginning so that they all felt like champions straight away. Now we meet with them regularly. We let everybody know where we're at, what's working, what's not, how they can help drive this forward, and everybody feels like they're owning it. But like, bring your collaborators in, because that will make all the difference.
Two really good points. The first one about focus on the employee experience. And the second one is, don't try and do it on your own. Don't put a fence around your area for good reason or bad reason. It's got to be a whole company thing.
There's just one quick thing I wanted to add to that, which is that quip, that joke I made about build it and they will come, they don't come. That is a painful experience in a past life. And so I raise that because if you go downstairs, there's hundreds of vendors selling you hundreds of solutions, and that will sell you the world that is going to solve your problems. It doesn't. Your solution has to be built within the context of your organization, and it has to be built with thinking about your leaders and the sponsorship you have. It has to be built with the infrastructure and the processes you put in place. That's what drives the biggest difference, not the technology.
And can I just add, like, this is a daily thing. Our joke is that, like, we had a baby called Thrive and we have to feed her every day. Like, you're not going to check this off the box, and every day you're checking, did this campaign work? Are people connecting? How is this content going? And some of it you get right, and some of it you're like, I'm still learning. This one didn't fly, and we just keep moving. That's our approach to it. So we nurture it every day, and just keep going from there.
Hi, I'd be interested to know for organisations that are as big and as complicated as yours in terms of the distribution, how you actually go about mapping out the learner experience. How do you subdivide your colleagues? How did you do it logistically? What were the questions? What was the data? How do you continue to validate that over time?
That's a great question for both of you. So it's about, how do you map out the user experience when one person's view of Diageo, one person's view. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just so excited. Yeah, the distributor piece. If you think about the nature of work, it's changing. People who are permanently employed are now being balanced with people who are contingent workers, people who are associates, people who are flexible working, as well as a distribution arm of your business. And I feel really passionate about this, which is all of those different types of workforce play an equal part in driving the success of the business, but historically have been forgotten in the learning experience. And so when we set up this infrastructure, what we had learned is our distributors had a horrible time accessing any real meaningful content about our products. And it was a nightmare. And so the way in which we've gone about it is we map out strategically who are our big distributors, how do they get access to learning, and then working out how do they get access to our infrastructure is you have to build a whole process for that so that they can hook in and get ring-fenced content. But we set out from the outset to do that because the changing nature of the workforce means that that's going to become much more important. In addition to that, when we buy brands, how we onboard them, they go through the same problems. And so setting that up from the outset, where they are in the world, what the limitations are. There are limitations in different countries that we have to deal with. And so really the answer to your question is, you think about the design end-to-end before you deploy it, I would say.
Excellent. Kristina?
I mean, in terms of 60% of our business is partnerships, so certainly we've had to take a really practical approach to how we train in that space, and really it's quick and dirty. I think, it's about scaling translation, simple job aids, simple video, and understanding that we're living in their space. I will say internally, when it came to trying to map out the different segments of our business and what they needed. When we did our needs assessment, like one person could have written it really. Everything was so similar because people were looking for the same learning organizationally, professionally, personally. The trends were overwhelmingly similar because most people are looking to learn things in a few key buckets. And I don't think it's actually as complicated as we make it out to be. We want product and brand training. We want personal and professional development. We want to understand where the organization is going when it comes to values, vision, and strategy. So kind of mapping that out, I think, was quite simple for us as well.
Okay, we're going to finish now, but I just one sentence. What would you advise everyone in this room? Start with you, Craige. One tip that you have learnt and deployed that could help everyone here.
If you genuinely want to make a difference, care about your employees' experience and design through that lens, that's what makes the difference.
Fantastic. Kristina.
You know, the other quote I have on my desk is epic meaning. So everything that we put through our space, we ask ourselves, does this provide that? Is this something that they're going to take with them throughout their life? And that's really the compass for the decisions that we make when it comes to content and experience. So try to create something human, family-oriented, and meaningful, and that's where people are going to fall in love with learning and feel really connected.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Craige and Kristina.
Thank you.
So, can I just say one more thank you, and that's to the AV people. You know, they do such a lot of bloody good work. They fix things that people have made horrendous errors. They sort it all out very quietly, kind of seamlessly and faultlessly, and no one ever says thank you. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.